Bath Ales Gem gluten-free pale ale.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. This is one from the Bath Ales Brewery, who are owned by St Austell. Now, don't let that put you off. I know I shouldn't be saying that, but yeah, Cornish beer just really doesn't do it for me at all. But this stuff I've not tried before, but I have tried their Gem Ale or Gem Bitter, and it was really nice. I thought that was so good that I compared it to Timothy Taylor's Boltmaker. Now, amber ale and bitter, yeah, you can argue the semantics, but personally I think amber ale it's an American term, and it doesn't really have a place in British beer. So years ago, that Gem Ale that they do would have been classed as a bitter, and that's why I compared it to the Timothy Taylor's Boltmaker. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but unfortunately for them, I thought that the Timothy Taylor stuff was better. However, as I always say with them comparison videos, if I'm comparing two beers, it's the best of the best. I don't compare shit with good beer. There's no point. There's absolutely no point. So this, I'm hoping, is going to be in keeping with that, because the Gem Ale that they do, I think is fantastic. I buy it now on a quite regular basis, and I absolutely love it. It's a very balanced, full-bodied bitter, and it really does do it for me. That's what I think this country does best. So Bath Ales really have gone up in my estimation. However, this is the only other English style beer that they do. Now, they do a West Coast IPA, they do what they call a California Pale Ale, and they also do cider as well, and I suppose coming from the West Country, that's in keeping with their traditions there. But I will say, on the strength of the Gem, I picked this up in the Asda in Ashford, and I picked up 3 beers from there. I tried the Bass Ale, which I reviewed earlier in the day. That was okay, actually. It's brewed by AB InBev, and it's got maize in it. The alarm bells were all there, but it wasn't that bad, I have to say. Then I tried the what's known as the Butty Back from the Y Brewery, and that was really good as well. I really did like that. Unique in the way that it had just a fruit finish on it, but a really nice orchard fruit finish, which is unique. I don't think I've ever had that in an English ale before, and it really did mess with my head, and for that reason I really did like it. It was different, and they got that spot on. So yeah, that got a 9 out of 10. I really was impressed with that. So I'm hoping that this isn't going to let the side down. Now, this, as they say on their website, is an English pale ale, which is, as I say, the only 2 English beers that they do. But it has got a brew sheet on there, and I'll get onto the ingredients in the next section. I won't do it in this one, but needless to say, I've got relatively high hopes for this one. So without further ado, let's get this open and let's see what's going on. Right, before we do, I've got the bottle opener handy, but I want to read you out the bump on the back and what this is. This is a 5% English pale ale. It is 500ml. The ingredients are water, barley, hops and yeast, and it really does, oh yes it does, it says Wild Hare is a flavoursome pale ale that's citrus and fresh with a hint of citrus bitterness. Gluten-free. Gluten is removed post fermentation. Now I will just get quickly onto the gluten-free bit. That never used to be gluten-free. They've done that recently, and I think that's a good thing. more and more people are, well, the condition is called that they are celiacs, and that basically means they're gluten intolerant. And I've seen a few people taking the piss out of people who have gluten intolerance, you know, in the media and all that. Oh, gluten intolerant, you know, vegan and stuff like that. You know, I just think, I know a couple of people who are gluten intolerant, and it is no fucking laughing matter for them. And I really do feel for them, because they have to eat special foods which cost an absolute, well, I wouldn't say an absolute fortune, but they're more expensive than the usual food, and they have to be really careful about what they eat. And beer for them is a real fucking minefield. A lot of them I know drink cider, and beer is just off limits. But I'm really glad a lot of craft brewers are doing it, but some of the bigger brewers are doing it now as well, and making their beer gluten free. It doesn't have an effect on the taste, I'll tell you that now. It really doesn't. All they're doing is removing a specific enzyme that the body finds hard to digest. And when they do that, it's usually post-fermentation, and it doesn't affect the flavour at all. I've certainly not noticed the difference. Well, put it this way, I couldn't, if I tasted a beer, I couldn't tell you whether it was gluten-free or not. There's no characteristic of a gluten-free beer. It's just got this small enzyme that people who are celiacs find hard to digest. So don't let a beer being gluten-free put you off, because it has absolutely no bearing. Well, from my experience anyway, I'm not going to say it's a scientific fact. I don't have the science to back that up, but from my experience of trying gluten-free beers, it has absolutely no bearing on the flavour whatsoever. You're not missing out on anything as far as I'm concerned. But there you go. That's just me. Anyway, let's get this open and let's see what's going on. Just quickly before I do, a little bit about the hops. It doesn't mention it on here, but it does mention it on the website. This is using First Gold hops. Now, First Gold hops are very similar to East Kent Goldings, which means they do have quite a bit of citrus in there as well. But the citrus that you get in there, I'm hoping, isn't going to be too overbearing and too much like an American pale ale, because they've billed this as an English pale ale, and I've sort of got it on that strength. As I say, these are supposedly the only 2 English style beers that they do. But again, on the strength of the amber ale, I picked this one up. So let's get it open and let's see what's going on. Right, here we go. Oh, blimey. The aroma that just burst out of there. Jesus. Now, I don't normally get the aroma from the bottle, but wow, that is massive. Let's get it into the glass, see what the fuck is going on with this. That is a pale ale, more like a golden ale, but wow, the aromas on this are fucking huge. Real, I would say, flowery, herbal, and almost resinous. Very green, if you can imagine that. Honestly, the aroma that's coming from that is absolutely amazing. There's the cap, by the way, if you're interested. In a blindfold test, I'd say that was a golden ale rather than a pale ale, but maybe I'm just playing with semantics. But the aroma on that is absolutely massive. It's citrusy, but that's not the big thing about it. This is hugely floral and herbal, and it's really nice. I'm looking forward to this. Right, let's get it down the hatch. Bottoms up. That's very citrusy. Let me dive in again. Yeah, there's some grapefruit bitterness on that, and it does have a bitter overtone to it. Very grapefruity and citrusy as well, but it's half refreshing, I'll tell you that. This is, I would say, a little bit more than chilled, and this room is quite hot, but this is going down very nicely indeed. It's quite full-bodied as well, and it's weird. There's huge grapefruit on the palate, and as you know, I'm not a big fan of them American citrusy type. You know, you get the picture. The real bitter, I wouldn't say West Coast, but the real big grapefruit bitterness that you get on some of them American IPAs. But you do get that on the palate. And that's Percy. Passy. And here he is. I don't know what he wants with me. He's just been out for his walk, and he was terrorising a little cocker spaniel. There you go. Yeah, what was I saying? Fucking, he's put me right off here as a little git. The grapefruit is big on the palate, but it doesn't really do it on the finish. It's more of a, I don't know, there's notes of herbal hoppiness on there, but no real malt character either. Let me dive in again. This is I don't know what's up with me tonight, but I'm getting confused by all these beer flavours. Let me dig in and try again. There's a touch of biscuit malt on there that I'm getting. The grapefruit on the palate is really big, and normally when you try them American IPAs where the grapefruit is big on the palate, the finish is just so bitter. It's like, I don't know, you just sort of reel back from it. But this doesn't really have that. It's more of a, I don't know, it sort of dies on the finish, which is making it quite dry, but also quite refreshing, if you can imagine that. Yeah, that's really, I don't know how they've managed that, but that's quite nice. If you like that big grapefruit citrus. Now I did get some of that on the Betty Stoggs, what they called a Cornish bitter. There was a big grapefruit on there as well. I don't know whether they used First Gold on that or not, but, and it was like this as well. It did have big grapefruit on there, but on the finish it just said, right, that's it, no more. I'll let all the other flavours come through, and that's what that's doing as well. It's quite nice. Yeah, it is. The overall thing about this is its bitterness, citrus bitterness, but it's measured and it's balanced, and I quite like that. And it leaves a dry finish, and it also leaves you wanting more as well, and that's really nice. Now I don't think it compares in quality to the amber ale, the gem, but it's still nice. I do like this. This is a good one, and it's a bit of a creeper as well, because, as I say, it's come out cold, very refreshing. That is the big thing, well, the first thing that hit me. But I'm also seeing now that there is some depth to this as well. There's some flavour, and it is quite full bodied as well. No, I'm really liking it. That is good. Slight haze to it. I don't know if you can see that or not. Mouthfeel's great. Very full-bodied. And just very, very refreshing. I'm liking that. That's a good one. So what is the verdict on Wild Hare? Well, I'm sitting here and I'm wanting more already. And I don't know what that's done to me, because it's, I don't know, it's just, I wouldn't say it's Moreish, it just makes you want to drink more of it, because it's so refreshing and it goes down quite nice. But on the palate, the flavours are massive, but it doesn't translate to the finish. It just has the right balance to make it nice. It's really weird, but it's really nice at the same time. If the flavours on the palate translate to the finish, I wouldn't like it. I'd say it's too bitter, too much grapefruit, and not really my thing. But the finish is very balanced, and I'm liking it. There's a touch of biscuit malt on there. There is the grapefruit, but it's not bitter. It's pleasant. It's quite refreshing, but you do get the overall feeling that this is quite full-bodied. And as I say, because it's gluten-free, don't let it put you off. You're not losing anything on flavour at all. This is full of flavour. And I think some people, I know certain people have said it to me as well, when they say gluten-free beer, they say, oh, you know, you're missing out. They mess about with the ingredients and all that. They don't. All they're doing is removing that enzyme, and it doesn't affect the flavour at all. That's very flavoursome. That's very nice. And I'm really liking it, and I think it's great. For my taste, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. And for all the praise that I've been giving it, to get a 7.5 out of 10, you're going to say, well, why are you doing that? Right, well, number one, I'm not a huge fan of that grapefruit flavour, but it works in that. But the overall, how can I put it? The overall bitterness on the palate is nice, but it's not really what gets me enthusing about a beer. Number two, and again, you know, this is, as I say, taste is subjective, but if I'm going to be trying an English pale ale, I don't really want to be tasting massive amounts of grapefruit. English pale ale traditionally is more malt forward, and the malt, even though it's there a little bit, it's not massive. And I think they've put the emphasis on the hops, and it's good. It is nice. I'm not. It sounds like I'm knocking this beer. I'm not. They've just done something different on there. They put the hops a little bit to the front, and the malt has taken a back seat. For me, a good pale ale, a good English pale ale, should have a little bit more biscuit malt on the finish. And a perfect example would be the Timothy Taylor Landlord. For me, they market it as a pale ale, but you can argue the semantics about what it is. But if that's a pale ale, that's, for me, that's what it should taste like. It's malty on the palate, and it's malty on the finish as well. This really doesn't have that. The emphasis is on the hops, on the citrus, on the hops as well. And it's good though. I'm not gonna deny. I do like this. Nice, yeah. No complaints, no nasties in there at all whatsoever. That's really good. But sadly, that is the only two Bath Ales beer that is of an English style. The others are, you know, they do a West Coast IPA. I'm not going to review that. Sorry. I know you might say, oh, well, it's an English brewer. They should be reviewed on the channel. Not if you're doing a West Coast IPA. I used to like the style, but it's not really my thing, to be honest. I don't go all out to get a West Coast IPA. Maybe if I'm absolutely desperate, you may see it on the channel, but it's not going to be a priority. But for now, I'm going to give that a 7.5 out of 10. I'll recommend it because it's quite nice as a summer drink if you like your ales. Now, you can argue that it might be a golden ale an English pale ale. Personally, I don't think it's an English pale ale, and I don't even think it's a golden ale either. I think it's it's got a little bit of an American twist going on there, but it's still nice. I do like it. So for me, I'm not going to muse any more about what's going on with it. That's a 7.5 out of 10, and I recommend it if you like your American style hoppy craft ales, your American pale ales, that type of thing. You'd probably like that. That's a good one. And remember, beer is working class champagne.